All right, the December 12, 2025 meeting of the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority is hereby called to order. The minutes should reflect that all three of the authority board members are present. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I'd entertain a motion for its approval.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
It's been moved. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. The next order of business is approval of the October 17, 2025 meeting minutes. I had to entertain a motion for approval.
I so move.
It's been moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting minutes are approved. We're now on to new business, and the first item under that is project permitting updates, the first of which is the Michigan Public Service Commission permit. Devin Sullivan, the Special Assistant AG to the authority. The podium's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As discussed at prior meetings, the Supreme Court granted leave to hear appeals of the Michigan Public Service Commission's order that granted Enbridge's application to construct a replacement segment of Line 5 within the tunnel. The appellants filed their briefs on November 14th. This week, the parties submitted a stipulated motion to extend the remaining briefing schedule. Assuming those motions are granted, the appellees' briefs will be due on December 22nd. Appellants' reply briefs and any amicus briefs will be due January 23rd, 2026, and responses to the amicus briefs will be due February 13th, 2026. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
I note, and this is an item that is contained further down the agenda, but in Enbridge's submission to the authority as part of its project updates, they encouraged the authority to submit in the Michigan Supreme Court proceedings. The first question I want to have to you is, our agreement with Enbridge actually requires us in some instances to provide support, I think, in permit challenges. Can you talk a little bit about whether I'm accurately characterizing the agreement and whether this is one of the permits that would fall within that requirement?
Yeah, the tunnel agreement has a section on the coordination of the defensive permits that does require the authority to coordinate defense of certain permits and certain other litigation with Enbridge. Those permits are the permits that are specific to the tunnel itself, because the MPSC order is for the pipeline as opposed to for the tunnel. It does not fall under that provision.
Okay. Any other observations? If we were to submit something that would be due, if I understand the timeline you presented earlier, on December 22nd?
Certainly, if the corridor authority was interested in filing a brief, we can put one together. The MPSC has an assistant attorney general who has been briefing the matter thus far, and we have not filed anything in the Court of Appeals or previously in the appeals.
Okay. That's all the questions I have with respect to that one for now. Any of my colleagues have questions for Devin?
I don't have any question, but I appreciate the clarification on the, the differential between the pipeline and the tunnel and the permitting. I think that's a good clarification. Thank you.
All right. The next permitting update is with respect to the Army Corps of Engineers Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement. Michael Belligan from the Michigan Department of Transportation, you're up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, starting with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the supplemental draft EIS, Environmental Impact Statement, was released on November 13th, 2025, along with notice of a virtual public hearing, which was held on December 3rd, 2025. The supplemental draft EIS added analysis of the horizontal directional drilling method, or installation alternative, they call it, which was previously dismissed from detailed analysis as technically infeasible in the original May 2025 draft EIS. The additional public comment period resulting from the supplemental draft EIS extended from its announcement on November 13th, 2025 to December 5th, 2025, 2 days after the virtual public hearing was held. As of now, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers continues to process the additional public comment collected during that time, working towards the release of a final environmental impact statement, which will integrate the two documents, the draft EIS, the May 2025 draft EIS, and the November supplemental draft EIS, as well as the future release after that of the record of decision, the ROD. The final environmental impact statement is expected to be completed sometime in spring 2026, with the latter, the ROD, coming 30 days later. Any questions?
Have identified at least the prospect with respect to this permit, the prospect of submitting something on behalf of the Corridor Authority with respect to this supplemental statement that the Corps has solicited comment upon the horizontal directional drilling option.
If I could interrupt, I can
Yeah.
allow Devin to speak to that.
Okay.
I'm happy to speak to it generally.
Yep. Why don't you talk about that for a minute?
So as Mike said, the public comment period did close last Friday. Obviously, we did not have a meeting in between when the supplemental EIS was issued and the supplemental draft EIS was issued and the close of the comment period. It is our understanding that if the authority were interested in submitting a comment, and we did so within a reasonable period of time, that the Army Corps would likely still consider that comment in preparing the final EIS. Staff has discussed a potential comment, potentially identifying some of the background with respect to Public Act 359, this body, the tunnel agreement, the requirements in the tunnel agreement related to secondary containment and other utilities, and the sort of question as to whether a new legal framework would be required to authorize HDD.
Okay. From my perspective, the lack of secondary containment for horizontal directional drilling, as well as the fact that it is, I think, different than what was contemplated under the statutory authority with which this authority operates, would suggest that we at least bring those things to the attention of the Corps. That's not to say that the state of Michigan couldn't enter under some arrangement with Enbridge to engage in horizontal directional drilling as an alternative to what is contemplated under the existing statutory authority and agreement. But I think it is significantly different than what was contemplated under the existing statutory authority and agreement. And I'd be supportive of submitting something to the Corps, making simply that point. So I throw that out to my colleagues as to whether that is something that you think would be appropriate for us to submit as part of what the Corps is reviewing in the different environmental alternatives that there might be for this project.
Yes, having reviewed the documentation and the tunnel agreement and Act 359, I agree that we, as a board, need to make a comment because there would be an impact to those, and we'd need to revisit those agreements. And in addition, there's several other agreements too that I think are implicated. So I think I would agree that the Army Corps needs to be made aware, and I do believe we need to bring it to their attention.
Yeah, I would support us making a comment to that fact as well.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion then that we approve submission of correspondence to the Corps that's consistent with the discussion that we've just had, identifying the departure from what is currently contemplated in both the statutory and contractual agreement with Enbridge and horizontal directional drilling. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Aye. So that, Devin, you can be directed or consider that motion passing your direction to prepare correspondence that we will submit to the Corps pretty quickly, given the fact that we're beyond the public comment date.
Thank you.
The next new business project permitting update is with respect to the EGLE permits, and I think this is both the combined Part 31 and 303 permits.
Yes, I'll address these separately as they have separate processing workflows. The Part 31 permit, NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. EGLE is still conducting internal reviews and is in the process of drafting the permit. There's no change. Once the permit has been drafted, it will be sent to the applicant, Enbridge, for review. Once concurrence has been reached with the applicant, it will be sent to tribal staff within an approximate January to March 2026 timeline is expected, ahead of the public notice period. The NPDES permit will then be available for public comment for 30 days after issued. During this time, the department will hold an informational session and a public hearing. The NPDES permit is required to be issued or decided prior to October 1st, 2026. So that's the first of the two. The second is the...
Before we get to the second, any questions with respect to that one? Okay, go ahead.
Next is the Part 303. This is combined Part 303 and 325. 303 is the wetlands protection. 325 is the Great Lakes submerged lands. Application review is still ongoing at EGLE. No decision has yet been made. As of the last board meeting, EGLE's processing deadline for the application was December 13th, 2025, tomorrow, but that deadline has since been extended to January 30th, 2026.
Okay, was there any reason articulated by EGLE as to why they were unable to meet the processing deadline of December 13th?
Not of which I'm aware.
Okay. Consider that a question if you guys know the answer.
Yes, and I will add my caveat that I did last time. The NPDES, the former that I discussed, has a slightly different permitting process. For NPDES, post concurrence with the applicant, the draft permit's issued for public review, whereas for permits like 303 and 325, the second one and we discussed, the permit application is published for public review prior to issuing or denying the permit, just for clarification.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, we are now on to general project update. We have a spokesperson on behalf of Enbridge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anna Mooney, Government Relations for Enbridge. I thought the updates on the permitting were succinct and thorough. Just wanted to maybe add a little bit more context for a couple of those topics. On the MPSC proceedings before the Michigan Supreme Court, recognize a distinction between the tunnel and the pipeline, and just maybe acknowledging that maybe is obvious that the Corridor Authority was an intervener in the initial permitting filing as well, the regulatory filing back in 2020. On the Army Corps of Engineers, to Michael's comments, just wanted to maybe clarify too, or just put a further emphasis that supplemental EIS is very narrow in scope to this alternative. It's an alternative that, our whole role in this permitting process is to ensure that we have durable permits, and durable permits are issued and granted. And so that was really one that we needed to have, further clarity and further information that was delivered to the Corps on that alternative, and then the subsequent public comment period that Michael went through. So yes, that public comment period, or excuse me, the public timeline that is out on their website has shifted or been updated to a early 26 for that for the EIS to be issued, and then a record of decision in the spring. So continue to work with the Army Corps of Engineers. We do on any comments or questions, additional information that they need to better understand that supplemental EIS. Maybe the other piece, on the EGLE piece. So for another point of just clarification is for the NPDES permit that Michael referenced, we do still have a current NPDES permit because we applied in a timely manner to renew that. So just want to make sure that if we were to begin construction today, we have a valid permit for water discharge. And then lastly, for the actual, to your last question around our permit that's being reviewed by the Army, or excuse me, by EGLE, as somewhat consistent with the last time we applied, they have 150 days statutorily to make a decision on a permit. EGLE, and the way it kind of works is they ask the applicant to ask for an extension if they need additional time to ensure that they have all the necessary information to make a decision on a permit. So we did grant that extension, or technically had to request the extension, but we did that, as it was mentioned, it was December 13th, which is tomorrow. I think with the holidays, with the information that was supplied during the public comment period as well, and their review of the information, that was something that we were willing to grant, obviously, to our regulator. And so that is now at the end of January. We continue to have regular communication with EGLE just to ensure that they have all the necessary information to make a decision. As of today, we don't have any current information requests before us, any formal. We did submit our latest one back in middle of November, I believe, middle of November. So I think those were the only updates I had from a permitting front. Happy to answer any questions, provide further clarity.
Okay. Any questions for Enbridge or Anna?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. The next item for consideration is the project advisor budget report. Stephen Ward, who's the project manager.
Morning. Those stairs, I tried to not make a Chevy Chase entrance. But it's a little tough. So in your packet, you have the updated Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority budget summary. So over the last quarter, we spent just over $100,000 on expenses, mostly on our consultant advising that we do. The biggest two takeaways there is one, we have with the budget encumbered, we're having a remaining appropriation at about $1.327 million. That's unencumbered that we can use towards our ORC contract that's coming up. But definitely for the future, our ORC contract will, or that remaining money will not be enough to take that ORC contract all the way through to its completion. So that contract is going to be written so that it will be able to be task ordered, and then we will, as we get more money, we'll be able to fund the full amount of that contract. But the other contracts are sitting pretty well, but this project having gone so long, we will need to ask for more money, which we've started that process in the budget process, to ask for more money to allow for that ORC to get all the way through the end of this project. So that's the owner's representative consultant contract, for those that are wondering what that is.
I have a question. And how long would that, generally would that process, because it would be a new appropriations or a modified appropriation. So there's obviously lead time and
Correct.
justification as to why you need this money and
Yeah.
what it's for.
Process generally takes about 18 months to get it through. So we started this year, and so hopefully it'll get through the process and it will be taken over by the legislature and actually it will be approved. If it doesn't, we start the process over again next year. And then it's kind of on that 12-month cycle to get reviewed every year. And we'll keep submitting until we get enough funding to run this project through to completion.
But as you said, you tied task orders so that we don't expend or commit to obligate additional funds beyond what we
correct.
have, so we can meter it out in correlation to the funding as it comes available.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for Stephen with respect to the budget?
All right.
Okay, on to consultant contract updates.
All right. So this is some good news here. So the independent quality assurance contract, that one is very close. It's just going through the final stages with contracting to get it signed. So hopefully that one will be done very soon. They are already under contract with Enbridge. That's just our contract with the IQA, just to make sure that procedural wise, we are all on the same sheet of music. The owner's representative consultant contract, we held that selection this last month. And we are happy to acknowledge that we did have 3 very good firms. They competed extremely well. It was a very tight race, but we did have a selectee, and we'd like to present that to the board for your consideration. And that was RS&H was the company that we did select as part of that process.
All right, I understand that authority member, that Ruth may want to make a comment with respect.
Yes, I do. So thank you. Before we start the discussion of the owner's representative contract, I have a prepared statement that I'd like to make. I wanted to disclose that I am a former employee of Fishback, which is a subcontractor on the RS&H team that the staff is recommending. When I learned that Fishback had planned to take part in the RS&H submission, I notified Fishback that I would be resigning my position to avoid any conflict of interest. That resignation was effective as of November 14th, 2025. My understanding that it is prior to when the staff began reviewing the proposals for its recommendation. I have consulted our counsel to determine whether any conflict of interest remains and have been advised that given my resignation, there is no conflict. However, to avoid even the appearance of any impropriety, I am going to recuse myself from discussion and any vote with respect to this recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so Ruth is on ice for purposes of any further discussion of this. And just my own observation, I don't think that step is necessary, given the fact that she is no longer employed by a subcontractor, but one that is nonetheless probably preferred, so that any issues that could be raised with it are minimized. Can you provide any further description as to the owner's representative consultant submission to give us a little more color on the context of the submission and what we contemplate the owner's representative consultant to perform once that contract is awarded?
Absolutely. So we had a committee of 6 people and 2 advisors that looked at these proposals. We're primarily looking for project managers, deputy project managers, tunnel engineer, some documentation personnel, some communications, public affairs personnel, and then a tribal liaison person. So those are the main things that we did evaluate. We also looked at the companies. They provided additional personnel, kind of their geotechnical background. They, of course, provided lots of their projects that they have done in the past. We looked at all that. We looked at...
Speak into the microphone so we can hear you online.
Okay. We looked at all of their past performance and their projects, everything that went into their proposal. And their proposals were very thorough. RS&H's, some of the things that stood out on that one is their definitely their deep understanding of this project. They had a very thorough analysis in their proposal of what this project involved and how they would move forward on this project. The presentations were all outstanding. They did a very good job. There was a very thorough understanding of the tunnel procedures and what would need to take place there. There were some that were better at communications and travel liaison than others, and we did take that into consideration because that is part of what they will do. They will help me as the project manager set up these meetings, and then once we move into construction, they'll be up hopefully helping us in Mackinac City and St. Ignace to make sure that we are communicating with the public very well on this project, and also working with Enbridge just to make sure that we have proper oversight in all the aspects of this tunnel once it goes into construction. I'm not sure if there's any particular questions that we can answer, but we do have all that. It's gone to contracting for their pre-approval, but it also needs to go to this board to approve it before it will actually go to a contract.
Okay, so what you're seeking today is a tentative approval of the selection of that contractor pending the actual contractual review and creation of what would be the governing contract that would come back to us later?
Correct. Yep, they've done their initial review and they have signed off on the procedural aspects of what we did as a board, and everything came back approved. And so now we need to make sure that this board approves it so that it can go to the final contract. That is correct.
Okay. Can you give me their full name, legal name again?
It's RSNH of Michigan.
Okay. I would entertain a motion, which I understand Ruth is going to abstain from participating in, with respect to the tentative selection of, or tentative approval of the selection of RSNH, subject to presentation at a later point of a finalized contract.
Yeah, I make a motion.
Okay. Any other discussion you want to have of it?
Just one question with that. I guess who are the other team members?
I'm sorry, could you
Who
say
are the other team members with RSNH?
the other team members?
Or
The
subcontractors?
other consultants.
I would have to get my file out to see who, they had an entire team. Devin, you want to look, see if he's got that? We can,
Checking to see it's not your firm?
I know
I
it's
think
not mine.
we did that conflict of interest on that, but we'll
Yeah.
actually look it up on my computer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, you can provide that later, just,
Okay,
yeah.
I can
But,
come back up when I come back and get that to you later
yeah.
in the meeting.
Pretty confident my firm is not a subcontractor.
We did try to, we did a pretty deep dive into all the conflicts of interest prior to them submitting.
All right.
Any other questions?
No other questions.
All right, then there is a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries 2-0. We're next on project specification update with Dr. Mooney.
Good morning, Chairman Novak, members, Chairman Novak, members Hepfer and Webb. Just by way of background, the Specifications Committee for the MSCA is a 5-person committee, includes myself, Rick Liptak with Chief Bridge Construction Engineer with MDOT, Talia and Steve, who are here with MDOT, and then until recently, Sam Schwartz with Delve Underground, tunnel designer. As the ORS comes on board, they will provide a person that will take over for Sam Schwartz on that committee. We meet biweekly with Enbridge and mainly with their designer of record, Arup, and their owner's engineer, WSP, to discuss specification changes. There have been no changes proposed in this recent period that would rise to the level of material change. And so there's no information in the packet this month and no action for you in terms of material change specification amendments. We have been discussing some non-material change specification changes. We're in the process of creating the documentation, which includes, just like in the previous changes, the documentation from Enbridge, and then our committee's report, which reviews those and gives our decision on accepting non-material changes. Those will be put into the next month's packet, and so I presume it'd be best to hold and discuss what those changes are until the next meeting. And I think that's it. That's the only update for spec changes.
Okay. Any questions with respect to that issue? All right.
No.
Thanks. Our next item is the receipt of Enbridge monthly reports. Stephen Ward, you're up.
All right, so in your packets, you'll see both the October and November monthly reports from Enbridge. So we did talk about them a little bit earlier. There were some things that you mentioned, so I'm just kind of putting it out there if anybody has any other questions for either myself or for Enbridge on their monthly reports.
I don't. Any questions?
I do not.
Okay, and we do post those all on our public website as well. So anybody that wants to see those will be able to see those on the website.
All right. Our next item is the annual report to the Mackinac Bridge Authority. Devin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. MCL 254.324D sub 2 requires that the board provide a report to the Director of the Michigan Department of Transportation and the Director of the Mackinac Bridge Authority at least once per year on aspects of the tunnel that could affect the Mackinac Bridge Authority, including the progress of construction and utility leasing. We've provided a proposed annual report to the board in your packet that sets out the MSCA's activities from the past year, the current status of permitting, and the status of discussions with third-party utilities. I would also note that with the board's approval, we would revise that draft to add a statement regarding the approval of the selection of RSNH subject to future contracting for the owner's rep, as well as a statement with respect to the intention to make a comment on the supplemental EIS.
All right. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the annual report as revised in the manner that Devin just suggested. All in favor?
I motion.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The report, as you indicated you would revise it for those two additional items, is approved.
Thank you.
The next item is simply the proposed meeting schedule for next year. August 28th struck me, that would be the week before, I checked the calendar, the week before Labor Day. So that appears to be safe. I didn't want to go up on Labor Day weekend. That would be crazy. But at least for now, these 4 dates appear that they will work, at least for me. Did you guys have any conflicts or things you wanted to raise with respect to those proposed meeting dates?
Yeah, I reviewed the dates, and I have no conflicts at this time.
I did the same, and right now they're farther enough out in advance I can make those all work.
Okay. And should a conflict come up, I think that is something that can be communicated to council, and if we have to accommodate someone for purposes of having a date that works for all of us, we can do that. I don't know that we need to approve those, but I guess we might as well. Motion to approve those dates for the meetings for calendar year 26.
I make a motion to approve those dates.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. The next meeting we have proposed, well, now approved, is February 27th. Stephen, did you want to make a statement regarding that?
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that, yeah, that one will also be here in Lansing. So we'll make sure that we have some good weather for that, or better weather. We won't have to drive up north for that one, so that will be a good one. Ms. Webb, I also wanted to get back to you on the companies that were on that. It's RSNH of Michigan, as we mentioned, ASC Group Incorporated, EPC Consultants Incorporated, Fishbeck Thompson Carr and Huber Incorporated, Ant Consultants Ltd., and Tanner Friedman Strategic Communications. So those are the companies that are involved in that ORC proposal.
Thanks. All right, we are now on to public comments. I don't know that we have too many members of the public, but if anyone wants to address the authority board, this is the time to do so.
There's no one from the public here to speak. However, you did receive one public comment by email.
Okay, so that public comment should be incorporated in the minutes and referenced as part of what was presented to the authority today. Is there anyone, irrespective of whether they signed up, who wanted to speak at this time? All right. I will consequently entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right.